Hey, Steve Magnante here at High Octane Classics in Auburn, Massachusetts with a 1965 Pontiac GTO. If you didn't know, GTO is a reference to the Ferrari GTO of 1962, 3, and 4. It refers to Gran Turismo Omologato, which is Italian for Grand Touring Car homologated with minimum production numbers to make it legal for European road race series. Now here in America, GTO stood for the Great One, if you're a Pontiac guy, and really a fantastic melding of a big engine and an intermediate-sized car. Now the second year, right here, 1965 for the GTO. 64 was the inaugural year. About 36,000 were built and sold, and 1965 saw 75,352. But of those cars, only 11,311 were convertibles like this one here. This is the real deal. Now with that said, the GTO for 65 had a lot of upgrades and updates to the styling. Most importantly was this power dome hood. We see it right here. And of course, vertical stacked headlights, which are things that weren't on the 1964 GTO, much different, much more subtle car. But again, right here, these vents, they don't do anything except sell the heck out of GTOs. There was a dealer optional, dealer installed cold air kit you get in 1965 and of course 1966. The tri-power cars could be had with an actual factory installed ram air system, but maybe 100 of those things were built. Very rare stuff. But again, this hood scoop here doesn't do anything at all but sell the heck out of GTOs. Another detail that was new for 1965 was the stacked vertical headlights right here. 64 was horizontal headlights, so more menacing grille on the GTO, and of course the GTO logo in the grille for the world to know that you're driving the Great One. Of course, on the front fenders, we have here the GTO logos on the fenders, and it says here 6.5 litri. What's a litri? Well, that's European for liter. 6.5 times 61 is 389 cubic inches, which is what the cubic inch displacement of the GTO engine was and is. Again, the convertible top. We'll look inside for a moment and see which transmission is backing up this engine. But let's pop that hood. And what a beautiful car this is. I love the 15-inch Rally 2 wheels with some modern radial tires with red lines. I think these might be Silvertowns by Coker, not sure, but they're high-speed, high-quality radials with red lines, which is a major GTO plus. Okay, let's pop that hood and see what we find. Here we go. Okay, no tri-power here. That's fine by me. Single 4-barrel with a lot of modern upgrades. Edelbrock aluminum intake, a small Holley 4-barrel carburetor, aluminum Edelbrock Performer RPM heads, and again, the aluminum heads are lighter than the Pontiac heads, larger ports, larger valves, lots of power here, probably about 425 horsepower, I would have to imagine. Tube steel headers, high ignition, MSD ignition system, and we also see power steering up front. One item I don't see on this GTO that's fine with me is no air conditioning. Now AC was a factory option if you wanted it, but being a convertible, put the top down and have all the AC you want. Just move down the road and the wind will blow through your hair better than any air conditioner unit could ever provide. So anyway, let's look inside this car and take a peek at what we find there. Which transmission is it? And another detail that was new for 1965 was the iconic diagonal pleating in the bucket seats. In 1964 it was horizontal, but again the diagonal pleats that we see on the GTO interior, top and bottom, was new for 1965, became an iconic feature, front seats and back seats with the Pontiac arrowhead embossed into the vertical pads. And again, inside, there it is, the 4-speed manual transmission. A little known fact is that Pontiac used a Ford-supplied 3-speed manual as the base transmission in the GTO. It's true. For another $184, you get a Muncie aluminum case M20 wide ratio or M21 close ratio 4-speed transmission. But this has the 4-speed with the Hurst shifter right here, the white ball right there. Just a great example of American muscle really in its second year, 1965, the GTO, the Great One. And something that's kind of interesting is that in 1964, when Pontiac released the GTO, they weren't given permission from General Motors to put a 389 medium-sized V8 into a compact or a mid-sized car. So John DeLorean and the executives at Pontiac broke the rules, and they were not punished for it because they sold 33,000 cars in 1964 and about 75,000 in 1965. So by breaking the rules, GM was thwarted and muscle car enthusiasts were rewarded with a big V8 powered intermediate sized car. Now this one here has the GTO specific wood grain dash right there. The gauges right there, which go up to 6,000 RPM, I believe, on the the red line on these here, but 8,000, there it is, but the red line is not going to be 8 grand for sure. Pontiac V8s are known for torque, not so much high RPM function, but they're a lot of torque and a great driving car. Of course, GTO specific grab bar right here for passengers who have white knuckles, keep them in place. And again, just nicely restored inside. And again, as a convertible, this is one of 11,311 GTO drop tops, the real thing right here. Pretty nicely restored. Let's have a look inside. Oh, and before we go inside, one thing about the convertible top is without the roof on these things, GM had to include some additional stiffening. The frames on these things have box sections instead of the C-channel sections of the hardtop or coupes. So again, this is a stiff-framed convertible, specific frame in this car. And if you feel under these things, you'll feel the box sections, which add about 150 pounds to the weight of the frame. I know I've weighed them both at various points in my life as a junkyard crawler. But again, the convertible frame is in place on this one. Now in the trunk, which we can see here, something new for 1965 was the movement of the gas filler from here, would have been in 1964, to behind the license plate in 1965. Allowed for a more sanitary appearance at the back of the car. And you can see right here the blacked out sort of thinned die-cast aluminum or pot metal, if you will, a touch here that gives the car a lower, wider stance. And once again, the Pontiac Arrowhead right there on top of the deck lid. And of course the GTO moniker right here, the guy in the Mustang or the Olds 442, to ignore the fact that you're riding in the great one. Let's pop that trunk and see what we can find. And yeah, beautiful red paint on this. I mean, it's like liquid. Let's pop that trunk. And again, the Pontiac Tempest Le Mans GTO is considered an intermediate sized car, but there's nothing intermediate about the trunk. There's plenty of room in here for all the groceries and all the luggage you might want to travel with. And again, nicely done with the Zolatone finish inside. And the underside of the deck lid is correctly presented in high gloss red, which is far nicer than what the Pontiac factory would have applied back in 1965. But again, just nicely presented inside and out. Of course, this has the 10-bolt style rear axle, the Buick Olds Pontiac with an 8.2-inch ring gear. Pretty tough piece, no problem there. And again, just a great example of the second generation for the great one, the Pontiac GTO. To see more about this car, go to the High-Octane Classics website and check out the photo gallery.